Complications of CSM, that is chronic suppurative otitis media. As we know that chronic suppurative otitis media is the infection within the middle ear. So here the definition is when infection spreads beyond the mucoperiosteal lining of middle ear cleft to involve the bone and neighboring structures like facial nerve, inner ear, dural venous sinuses, meninges, brain tissue, extratemporal soft tissue. In short, all the structures surrounding to the middle ear. And mortality due to intracranial complications is high. Which are the complications? Intracranial and extracranial. Intracranial are one which involves within the brain tissue. First, there can be inflammation of the meninges, that is meningitis, extradural abscess, subdural empyema, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. There can be a brain abscess, otitic hydrocephalus or CSF otorrhea. And the extracranial are the extratemporal and intratemporal. Extratemporal are the subperiosteal abscesses. There are so many abscesses according to the site that we will discuss later on in the topic. And the intratemporal, that is within the temporal bone in which the ear is situated, that is mastoiditis, labyrinth involvement, petrous apicitis, facial nerve paralysis and sensory neural hearing loss. Now, which are the roots of excess? First is the bony defects, other is the normal anatomical pathways, then hematogenous and periarterial spread. Which are the bony defects? That is anatomical dehiscences like jugular bulb, dural plate, fallopian canal, which contains the facial nerve. If any of these overlying structures will not have the bone or erosion of the bone, then there can be spread of infection. Then erosion of the bone due to cholesteatoma or granulation tissue, or because of trauma like accidental trauma, dural breach during any surgery or mastectomy. These are the bony defects. Then normal anatomical pathway like oval window, round window and aqueducts. Hematogenous are the infected thrombus and venous spread from the sinus, emissary veins and the stomach. Other is periarterial spread, that is sitting in the white matter of the brain. Now, what is the spread of infection? As here in the picture we can see this is the inner ear. So it can involve the inner ear, then it can involve the mastoid, callus and mastoiditis. From the middle ear the facial nerve will pass. So there are chances of facial paralysis. Then here posteriorly it can lead to lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. Then from there, from the Trotman's triangle, it will go to the cerebellum. So there can be cerebral abscess. Infection within the brain, meninges, that is meningitis. Then external to the dura is extradural, and beneath the dura, that is subdural abscess, and within the brain, that is cerebrum, that is cerebral abscess. So in this only one picture you can see all the complications. Now, which are the factors? Okay, there can be pathological factors, there can be patient factors. Pathological factors are the high virulence of the bacteria, antimicrobial resistance will be there, tuberculosis will be there. And patient factors, then young age, poor immune status, chronic disease like diabetes mellitus and other immunosuppressive conditions, poor socio-economic status and lack of health awareness. First is extradural abscess. Extradural is the second most common autogenic intracranial complication. Acute infection is by demineralization and chronic by erosion. Here is in the picture, this is red one is the dura mater and this one is with holes, that is the brain, that is the bone of the skull, and so between external to the dura and beneath the bone, that is extradural. Then there can be infection within the anterior cranial fossa, middle cranial fossa and posterior cranial fossa. If the infection within the anterior cranial fossa, that is called Pott's puffy tumor. Within the middle cranial fossa, it can also involve tegmen tympani or petrous apicitis. Tegmen tympani is lateral to arcuate eminence, while petrous apicitis is medial to the arcuate eminence. Then the posterior cranial fossa, sinus plate and Trotman's triangle. There can be perisinal abscess, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, and through the Trotman's triangle. It is the second most common intracranial complication. There can be coalescence, cholesteatoma, and granulations. Non-specific symptoms are unilateral headache, fever, or autoria, often diagnosed preoperatively, that is silent abscess. MRI is more effective than CT scan. Then management is systemic antibiotics and modified radical mastectomy. Then other is the subdural empyema, that is subdural abscess, that is beneath the dura, that is between dura mater and arachnoid mater. It is the least common complication due to mostly non-hemolytic streptococci. Inflammatory reaction underneath the dura, there will be granulation, fibrosis, and necrosis of the bone. Pseudopurulent and later on purulent collection. Subdural space along the tentorium cerebelli and interhemispheric spaces. Now, what are the clinical features? There can be dramatic presentation, rapid deterioration, severe headache, fever, drowsiness, followed by focal neurological symptoms, much more rapid than brain abscess. There can be Jacksonian fits, hemianopia, hemianesthesia, and aphasia. Mortality is 15%. Here in the picture you can see in the CT scan there is along the falx cerebri. Okay, it is loculated and hypodense. In this gadolinium enhanced MRI can see ring enhancement, and it is contrast imaging, mass effect, and blunted sulci you can see. Now, how will you diagnose and manage? CT scan is this confirmation for the diagnosis. Then CSF culture we have to do, which is sterile in such cases, and we have to take the help of neurosurgeon, and we have to do systemic antibiotics. We have to do removal of the subdural fluid by either burr surgery with the help of neurosurgeon. And then to prevent ear infection, we have to do cortical mastectomy and laryngotomy. And now craniotomy, abscess excision is also done. Radical mastectomy we have to do after the patient is stable. Now other complication is meningitis. Meningitis is the most common intracranial complication in children following acute and adults following chronic infection. Mortality is 5 to 30%. Autogenic meningitis is the most serious than meningococcus meningitis. The causes for the acute infections are the H. influenza, Streptococcus pneumoniae, type 3. And the chronic due to Proteus and Pseudomonas. Anaerobic are bacterioid. Now, what are the routes of entry into the meninges? Most common is the hematogenous. That is the direct extension by the bone erosion like cholesteatoma, encephalocele, or preformed channels, labyrinth, aqueduct. Suspicious signs are the persistent or intermittent fever, lethargy, nausea, vomiting, irritability, or persistent headache. Ominous signs are the visual changes, new onset seizures, knuckle rigidity, ataxia, altered sensorium. Associated intracranial complication in 50% of cases we can see. Now, we have to do diagnosis by the CSF study by the lumbar puncture. We have to do cytology, chemistry, smear, and the culture. For the management, we have to give broad spectrum IV antibiotics and steroids to prevent subsequent hearing loss. We can do laryngotomy and also mastectomy, cholesteatoma, coalescent mastocytitis. In all such cases, we have to do radical mastectomy. Now, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis. It is lateral sinus is equal to, it is formed by the sigmoid sinus and transverse sinus. In the sinus, so once the sinus is infected, there will be perisinus abscess formation, inflammation of erosion of the sigmoid outer wall, then endophlebitis, then mural thrombus formation, occlusion of the sinus lumen, intrasinus abscess. And that will be lead to propagating infected thrombus, and if not get treated, it can lead to thromboembolism also. Now, as we told, this is the pathology: inflammation of the sinus wall, then the mural thrombus formation, occluding thrombus formation, propagating thrombus, and abscess formation. Now, from the sinus, it can spread to the surrounding sinuses or the veins. So, which are those? The systemic spread, it can lead to bacteremia, septicemia, septic embolization. It can also spread to subclavian vein, internal jugular vein. So, superiorly, it will go to sagittal sinus, which can lead to papilloedema or vision loss. It can also go to petrosal and cavernous sinus, which lead to proptosis and chemosis, and it can also extend to the mastoid emissary vein, leading to the Griesinger sign, that is edema and redness over the mastoid region. The same things. Clinical features. Patient might have remittent high fever with rigors, that is picket fence fever. Pitting edema over the retromastoid area and occipital bone due to this mastoid emissary vein thrombosis. Then tenderness along the internal jugular vein. Patient might have headache and anemia. Well, signs and symptoms. Patient might have high fever, swinging type, chills precedes the fever, temperature subsides with sweating. Each fever spike is due to release of the fresh septic embolus. When from the thrombus the septic embolus is released, it will lead to the fever spike. Now, how will you investigate? That is, for this test is the Queckenstedt's test or the Tobbe air test. Here, when you compress the IJV in the neck, so there will be rapid rise of the CHF pressure, that is 50 to 100 millimeter of water. And once you release, there will be rapid fall. But in the lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, because thrombus and thrombus within the vein, there will be no rise or rise by only 10 to 20 millimeter of water. It has lower sensitivity and specificity. The investigations are, we have to do lumbar puncture to rule out the meningitis. We have to do CT brain with contrast, which shows delta sign or empty triangle sign. We have to do MRI brain with contrast. We can do MRI angiography, blood culture, and cultural and sensitivity of the EA discharge. Its treatment is intravenous antibiotics, surgery, anticoagulants, and ligation of the internal jugular vein. Now, what is the algorithm for surgery? We have to do mastodectomy, that is inspection of the sinus wall. If it is normal, that is compressible or healthy looking, and so we are not supposed to do anything, only just mastodectomy. If it is diseased, that is inflamed, immobile, pale and opaque, we do wide bone needle aspiration. If in this aspiration there can be free flow of blood, there can be dry tap or no blood or pus. If free flow of blood is there or dry tap is there, we then will manage conservative. If there is no blood or pus, we can do thrombectomy and drainage. Now, brain abscess. Autogenic brain abscess, it is seen in 50 to 75% of adult brain abscesses and 25% in child. Autogenic in origin. So, in adults, most common cause for the brain abscess is autogenic cause. The temporal bone abscesses are more common than the cerebral, and the ratio is 2:1. Routes of infection can be direct spread or retrograde thrombophlebitis or Virchow-Robin space. Direct spread is via Tegman plate, that is temporal abscess, or via Trotman's triangle to the cerebral abscess. Now, through the Trotman's triangle. Superiorly, here in the picture you can see Trotman's triangle is formed by superior petrosal sinus. Okay, this superior petrosal sinus. Posteriorly, it is formed by sigmoid sinus, and anteriorly it is by the solid angle, that is the angle between three semicircular canals. The four stages of this brain abscess, as in the picture you can see, it can be in the first stage is invasion or encephalitis, that is within 1 to 10 days. First invasion is there, then there will be localization or abscess formation, that is latent abscess. It will take 10 to 14 days. Within the 10 to 14 days, then expansion or manifestation of the abscess. When it is more than 14 days, it will lead to raised integral tension, local signs. And at last, it will lead to, there can be termination or abscess formation, which will lead to fatal meningitis. Raised intracranial tension, it is seen more common in cerebral abscess. There will be severe persistent headache, worse in the morning, associated with projectile vomiting, blurring of the vision, and papilloedema, lethargy, drowsiness, confusion, and coma. There can be bradycardia and subnormal temperature will be there. Different findings are temporal lobe and cerebellum. How will you differentiate the patient? You might have this cerebral abscess or temporal lobe abscess. So according to the structure which are within the temporal bone and within the cerebellum, which are the functions of that parts, with that we will decide. In the temporal lobe, there will be nominal aphasia, homonymous hemianopia, called it there will be contralateral, epileptic seizures, pupillary dilatation, hallucination of smell and taste, and contralateral hemiplegia. Everything almost will be the contralateral. While in the cerebellum, everything will be ipsilateral, that is ipsilateral nystagmus, ipsilateral weakness, ipsilateral hypotonia, ipsilateral ataxia, intention tremor, past pointing, and this diadochokinesia. Investigations are the CT scan of the brain and temporal bone with contrast, site and size and staging of the abscess, observed progression of the brain abscess, associated intracranial complication. MRI differential diagnosis is pus, abscess, capsule formation, edema. It can spread to the ventricle and subarachnoid space. We have to avoid lumbar puncture to prevent conning. Differential diagnosis. In meningitis, there can be high fever, neck stiffness, CSF findings, subdural abscess, the progression we have to see. Lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, there will be precursor of the cerebral abscess. Otitic hydrocephalus, that is absence of the focal neurological signs, CT findings and CSF features. Management is high dose of broad spectrum IV antibiotics, that is ceftriaxone plus metronidazole, gentamicin. In IV dexamethasone, that is steroid 4 mg to reduce the edema. 6 hourly IV 20% mannitol 0.5 gram per kg to decrease the intracranial tension. We can give anti-epileptics, that is phenytoin sodium, antibiotic ear drops, and oral toilet. Surgical management is burr hole, rapid aspiration, excision of the brain abscess with capsule, open incision and evacuation of the pus, radical mastectomy. Otitic hydrocephalus. It is synchronous with benign intracranial hypertension. Symptomatic increase in the intracranial tension, that is more than 240 mm of water in the lumbar puncture. Papilloedema and normal CSF findings in absence of the brain abscess or meningitis. It is a misnomer. Lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, it will go to torcula, then to sagittal sinus thrombosis, inhibition of the CSF resorption through the arachnoid villi will lead to increased intracranial tension. Otitic hydrocephalus it has clinical features of severe headache, vomiting, blurred vision, papilloedema, optic atrophy, abducent palsy, and diplopia due to raised ICT. Conservative management are acetazolamide, fluid restriction, diuretics, mannitol, serial lumbar puncture, systemic anticoagulants in case of sagittal sinus thrombophlebitis. Can do mastectomy with or without thrombectomy in CSM with cholecystectomy. Management, lumbar puncture will lead to increased CSF pressure, that is more than 300 mm of water. Biochemistry and bacteriology will be normal. CT brain will show normal ventricles. Treatment is antibiotics and modified radical mastectomy to decrease CSF pressure and which prevent optic atrophy by dexamethasone, mannitol, acetazolamide, diuretics, repeated lumbar puncture, lumbar drain, or ventricular peritoneal shunt. From the CSF auditorium, we will continue into the next lecture. Thank you.